Youth gun violence is a topic that's often overlooked in its full complexity. In this three-part series, we dive deep into the issue, exploring it through the perspectives of everyone it touches. The sound of gunfire has become an unsettling and pervasive soundtrack for many in America's Black communities, where youth gun violence is an all too common reality. For many Black teens, the streets offer a sense of belonging, acceptance, and power that they struggle to find in their homes, schools, and society at large. But at what cost? For some, the answer is etched in scars from battles, drug addiction, or worse, the loss of loved ones. Upon shooting episode 1, Grounded in Grace, we sat down with several youngsters from Youth Build, an organization dedicated to helping young people earn their GEDs while equipping them with life skills. And of those, like many, the path to the streets begins with tragedy and loss.
My prey brother had died, and basically, you know how they go. Start doing the wrong things and just hanging with the wrong crowd. And then 6 months later, 2 sets of more friends died. After that, a couple more friends died, so it was just back to back.
Zah, a troubled youth looking to get her life back on track, reminds us of how coping with death can have a powerful impact on the youth, often serving as the starting point for a spiral into violence. Zah's experience is echoed by T.
When my cousin passed away, that's what made me turn to the streets, just because he was in the streets and he was well known. And when he died, that paid a big old, that took a major loss for me, so I wanted to just be just like my cousin, so I got right in the streets right after he passed away. He was shot over here on the south side, at the store. He was drunk one day, and some dude walked up on him, he punched him, and the dude shot him more than one time, so. That story was it's a long, crazy story, but that's what made me look at the streets pretty much different though. Like I couldn't trust nobody.
Unfortunately, sometimes we don't give our young people the tools, or they haven't learned the tools to clearly express themselves. And so their behavior is kind of like, hey, I don't care, this is what I'm gonna do. To us, it's acting out. But to them, it's like, no, I'm gonna be heard. So if you can't see me or hear me or validate me in other ways that I've tried or I don't know how to get, then you're gonna see me and hear me and validate me, in this behavior.
Therapist Latoya Smith highlights a painful truth. When young people lack the tools to express their emotions, they often act out as a way to be seen. For teens like T, the streets offer that validation, becoming both a thrill and a test of survival. Yet, even he acknowledges the streets' dual nature, offering excitement, but with dangerous consequences when poor decisions are made.
First time running from the laws, wasn't scary. It's like tag, playing like, you don't want to get caught, you don't want to get it. Then I just say the fighting and all that, it was fun. Then it was bad when you lost. When you lost a couple credit, a couple cool points, and you got to come back and try to prove yourself again. But the streets is good and it's bad at the same time. It's only bad if you make it bad though. Like it's only bad if you make a poor decision.
It's just like the days of old in the early 90s when I grew up. In the early 90s, we could get a gun before we could get a meal, right? It was very cheap, very accessible. Everybody was selling it. And then you had instructions on how to use it through everything we watched on the videos, the music that we listened to. We got instructions on how to use the very thing that could take a person's life. And the epidemic is that's what's going on right now, except that we and the powers that be are failing to pay attention that history is repeating itself because we did not learn how to rectify it the first time.
Reformed gang leader Mar Butler's experience from the early 90s shows how guns and violence have long been accessible to youth in the underserved neighborhoods, with media and music shaping their understanding of power and survival.
Then people become faithful for what they're hopeful for.
But today, as social advocate Bruce Carter of Pathway to Independence explains, this crisis runs even deeper, with young people constantly exposed to violent imagery and detached from parental guidance. The cycle intensifies.
If you start to talk about violence, I instantly think about urban cores. That's where you have the consistent, senseless, and youth violence. And once again, parents are not connected. And so we have to at least encourage parents and teach them about the value of parenting. Like that's like a commitment. So I'm talking about making sure your kids are not being indoctrinated, whether it's at school or whether it's through social media. So some of the behaviors that you see a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old exhibit, it's unbelievable because you don't understand how the 12-year-old picked the gun up and just shoot somebody knowing that could be it, or how the 12-year-old commits rape. And you're thinking like, where is this behavior coming from? But it's, faith coming by hearing all the things you see. And what our kids hear and see, once again, whether it's social media, whether it's in a video, whether it's in a song, or it's what people talk about at school, we have to be very cognizant of that as parents.
I'm going to go out and say that if we take a young person and we bring them back to the family, something's going on there, whether it be lack of communication, again, lack of resources. Maybe this is a generational thing. Maybe it's the environment that you're in with the family. This young person's not the only one aching.
Since I was a kid, I was always moving house to house. I was never with my mom. Like, if I was with my mom, it was probably for a year. I go with my dad for probably a year or two. And then I go to my mom's friend, her sister, her cousin. Like, I just go house to house. I grew up growing up from house to house to house.
Well, basically, I lived with my nana growing up. She took care of me and all my siblings, 6 siblings. And we all got separated as kids though. So like, she had a certain amount of us. Some people had a certain amount of us. Some of them we didn't get to grow up with each other. Basically, I was in school. I was doing good up until I got to high school, hung out with the road crowd, started skipping, smoking, all of that. And then got kicked out of school for fighting. Had to come here. You had to come back, finish, get my GED.
For Winter, like so many other black teens, parental stability didn't exist. And as she explains, this isolation drove her to internalize her struggles, setting the stage for a painful battle with depression and self-worth.
Basically, my mom, she in and out of prison, my dad in and out of prison, both of them. Majority of my siblings, they had their dad, so they had somebody there for them, but I didn't have nobody there for me. So like when I try to talk about my problems, my nana kind of like brushed it off like, oh, it ain't no problem, you ain't got no problems, you're not depressed. And I was kind of going through a lot because like I don't open up about a lot of stuff. So it's like everything was just bundled up inside. Like I was touched when I was younger, I was like all of that. So it's like everything was going through my mind at one time. My mama, I was talking to her, they was basically saying like, oh, didn't nobody want you, like a mistake, all of that. Like, yeah, it was a lot going on. So I was trying to take my life because of that.
Listen, we're all a product of our environment. If my house is always, it's sad, it's dark, there's no hope, it's gloomy, there's a lot of cussing, there's no love, right? There's a lot of worry, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of violence. There's, no safety. The door is revolving, different people are in and out, right? The young person can take that on, develop certain symptoms, become withdrawn, become sullen, become angry, to act out, right? Give up hope.
I distanced myself from family. Me and mama started getting into it real bad. I even moved away with my pops. So it was just bad, like real bad.
It was most definitely hard because I wanted to grow up with my mom. I wanted to have a different lifestyle than I have right now. Like I wanted a 2-parent household. I wanted to be with my dad sometimes, my mom sometimes. Like I wanted the best of both worlds. But my mom is like more of a street person. My dad is more of like he on his shit. So like now I gravitate more to my dad. Back then I was like with my mom 24/7. Me and my mom did shit together, like stuff that I do with my homeboys or something like that. So I got plenty of love for my mama, but my dad, he gonna get me in the right path though. So that's why I stayed, like that's what made me start doing this youth build right now. Cause my dad, like, he want me to do better, so I'm gonna do better for him.
Just because a child grows up with a mother and a father does not mean that they're gonna be in a healthy environment. Let's get that part understood. If you growing up with a mother and a father, but the mother or the father really knows what it's like to be a real man or a real woman, they was just 2 children, just had a baby, then that child is still in trouble, right? That child is still in trouble because he or she does not have an example to pattern themselves after it because the parents themselves are lost. They are the ones who are devoid of education on themselves of what it's like to be a man or a woman. Therefore, they don't know womanhood or manhood, right? So therefore, the family is instantly dysfunctional from day one of birth. And this is the domino effect because the majority of the children that's in Generation Z now come from children that was Generation X, like myself.
While having 2 parents in the home can offer stability, Mar Butler reminds us that it doesn't guarantee a healthy environment. Many black families, even those with both parents present, still experience dysfunction when parents lack the tools or support to model healthy relationships. For Generation Z, often raised by parents from Generation X, that lack of preparation or life experience can create a cycle of instability, leaving children with limited examples to follow. Chanel, another youth who longed for both parents, struggled to cope and began acting out, looking for a sense of direction in her own way.
My main thing was my father not being there. So it was more so me, you feel me, not having my dad in my life. I was always acting out in school, like from elementary to high school. So I take full accountability for that because it all fell back on me. But at the end of the day, my dad played a role in it too.
When anybody doesn't get their needs met in a certain situation, they'll show their need for support, love, and acceptance in other ways. And for some people, especially our young people, sometimes violence seems more like the acceptable way to gain that acceptance and love. It is also what we can look at as a natural cry for help sometimes. You know, if I'm bothered and I'm upset and I feel the lack in this area, I'm gonna gain the respect, the attention, and acceptance in this other area.
I mean, I had family around, but they didn't know what was going on. Only person really knew was my mom, but she didn't never, just asked. She knew, but she didn't ask, But in that time period, I didn't want to be around nobody. I was more so to myself, I didn't know how just to say, oh, something's wrong, or, you know what I'm saying? I'm out here bad. I didn't know how to do that. So I coped with drugs, if that makes sense. I started doing all type of stuff. Selling a little weed here from there, shit, scamming a little bit. I ain't gonna lie. I even started stealing a little bit, get some money. Cause I was, I ain't gonna say I was addicted, but I felt like I needed that drug.
In the midst of chaos and unresolved pain, drugs often seem like an escape, a way to numb what feels impossible to handle. For many young people like Zah, who struggle to open up or find someone to listen, substances become an easy way to cope with the overwhelming weight of their lives. What starts as a way to block out pain soon becomes a dependency, drawing them deeper into a cycle that only compounds their struggles.
It blocked my pain away. Everything was just numb. I didn't know how to sit there and cry about it. So I used drugs to numb that pain. It was just numb. I didn't know how to just cry. So I'm not gonna lie, I was a little follower. I seen my other homeboys doing it, so I was like, let me go on and do it. Let me see, you know what I'm saying? They numbing, so let me go on and numb. And once I started doing them, it's like, shit, I couldn't get off of them. I'm gonna keep it 100. The drug was calling me, I feel like. It was calling me. And it was times I tried to get off. It was like, shit, we'll go to the house, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna get the perks. And I'd be like, nah, I ain't gonna get them this time. And I look up, I'm in the damn house popping a perk. I'm keeping it 100. But when I first started popping perks, I started popping fentanyl. And I damn near died. And that just, nah.
I did them in 7th grade, and then I tried to overdose myself in 8th grade with them, but it was a lot going on in life, so I really just wanted to die.
Suicide, a heartbreaking option for many teens left to navigate life's difficulties alone. Dysfunctional homes and under-resourced schools often leave young people slipping through the cracks.
The school system is not required to pay attention to children year-round and support. It's about protecting the system in order to distribute the education and the children are supposed to learn, whatever that is. In that streamline, in that process, are very little cracks that have grown tremendously, exponentially, out of control. And that's the cracks of understanding what the village effect looks like. When people pay attention and people have communication with one another, the networking of resources, joining in concert, working harmoniously to provide wraparound services, not just for that child, but for the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, everybody who's up under that roof. We used to have that effectively because we used to operate as a village. So now you have a lot of kids that are saying nowadays they have no love, they don't care, and they don't care about killing nobody else or being killed by anybody else. They don't have no love. That's the main thing. So their version of what care, concern, and love looks like is detrimental.
Such is life, right? sometimes the world is so busy and parents are busy that things can be missed. But the other problem is that parents are currently going through the same things themselves. And, a lot of times what we see as, listen, I call this normal. And what's normal to one may be such a low and dark place to somebody else, right? So we normalized these low points, right? We normalized unhealthy mental health behaviors to the point where we don't recognize them as a problem.
Therapist Smith speaks from years of experience as a therapist working with youth and families, understanding firsthand how trauma, loss, and broken family dynamics can impact mental health. She sees the critical role that therapy can play in helping young people process pain, build resilience, and rediscover hope. But as valuable as mental health support is, it still faces a stigma within the Black community.
Nah, I feel like that's for white people. I'm keeping it 100. But now I'm straight now. I'm good.
Both Za and Winter speak on their personal experiences with therapists and social workers.
Okay, when I moved with my pops, it was one day I was just going through a lot. Like, I had a mental breakdown. And I had talked to this lady, you know what I'm saying? And I talked to her and I was just so heated. And I couldn't really just say nothing. I couldn't say nothing. She talked to me, you know what I'm saying? My pops told her a little bit about my background, but I just couldn't tell her nothing. I just couldn't open up.
Yeah, they reach out to us. They reach out, but they really didn't help like that. Because if you try to talk to them, the first thing they did was send to a mental hospital. That's the first thing they did when I actually tried to open up to them. Yeah, the mental hospital didn't help at all.
After being sent to a mental hospital for 2 weeks and given medication that made her feel sluggish and tired, this in turn became yet another traumatic childhood experience.
They felt like I was trying to harm myself, but I wasn't trying to harm myself. I was just saying how I felt at that moment, and they sent me there.
Though the system has failed so many teens, Mrs. Smith's advocacy for mental health and dedication to helping young people find their voice is deeply personal. She knows, from her own journey, the weight of unspoken trauma and freedom that comes with sharing one story.
It was a big part of my story and why I share. When I was a child, I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And what I've learned, and it took me some time, but what I've learned is, listen, the more I share my story and use my voice, it helps me to get free. I could look at, man, this could keep me down. This could suppress my voice. And this could change the trajectory of who I am. But the more I talked, the more I got free, the more I shared, I felt better. But I think that's the value of, sitting with therapists, sitting with trusted adults, that you could sit and you can begin the process. And everybody may not know exactly how you feel, but it's just the ability to open up and share your story. And I think that's what I would love for more young people especially to do, to find people or find spaces that they're able to open up and just share. And what I've noticed too, is that everybody's not gonna come out the gate and share their whole story just when they sit down once. But sometimes it's the little things, and that's what us adults, adults and therapists have to look out for. When somebody gives you a little piece of their story, that's huge. Just to be able to say, there's violence in my home, my dad's hitting my mom, or we don't have food, or, I was abused as a child, or I was touched inappropriately. That is big, So when a young person trusts you with that, don't dismiss it. And if you're uncomfortable and you can't handle it, find somebody else that can handle it so that young person can get some help. Because what's gonna happen is if they open up and share with you and you can't do anything with it, you neglect it, you drop it, they're gonna close back up, and it may be a long time before they share again. And in that gap of time, there's a lot of things that happen to them. And unfortunately, a lot of things they may do, right? To be able to get that energy, that anger out that they have.
This is more of a public health issue.
And much like therapist Smith, Mark Butler's work with troubled youth is driven by his own life story, a past that many of the young people he helps can relate to all too well.
See, what you don't understand is, man, I used to be one of those kids. I used to be one of those kids, raised with my mother was 16 and 17-year-old father. I went to prison, juvenile, jail, prison, my whole entire life. Before September 11th, 2001, I was the highest grossing marketing salesman in the country at 24 years old at IBM Corporation. When that World Trade Center, that catastrophe happened and it affected the whole nation, less than a year, man, I was in prison with a 15-year sentence for aggravated robbery because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to turn to. Every door that I knocked on closed. I didn't know about no resources, and I was slowly breaking down as a man because I had a family with children. I didn't know what to do. And I ended up serving 15 years, 10 years of it in the Texas prison for aggravated robbery because of the things I did not know what to do when times got hard. And the reason why I fight to be so passionate is because I don't want nobody being in my position when times get hard, because times are gonna always be hard for everybody. Since then, we done had the recession, the depression, the real estate crash, we had COVID, we done had everything and during the pandemic, and it's always a reminder that everybody goes through something that's going to test your life. I want to be one of those answers that says, when you go through those problems, you can call me. I make it my job to make sure that those next things, those options are put in place so you can have something better to choose from other than the choice that I made.
Mar's story is a powerful reminder that many young people simply need someone to guide them, a hand to help them find another path. For Bruce Carter, however, the answer lies in something more fundamental: personal responsibility. With a straightforward, no-nonsense approach, Bruce believes that too many are misdiagnosing the problem as a mental health issue, when in reality, it's often about not understanding one's worth or values.
And where are we gonna be if we don't get this done? If I don't get this done, we're gonna have a society of misfits. We're gonna continue to talk about mental health. And so, no, it's not mental health that's our biggest problem. It's people not understanding their value, so it makes them unhealthy. But we will throw billions at mental health. We will do mental health by the phone. You know how we are. If we do a Zoom, we're doing a million other things. So we're really not even focused on our issues. So you got too many people who are getting therapy when they need some hope, they need some opportunity, they need some love. And then there may be some people who need that whole mental space. But man, everybody can't be crazy all of a sudden. This thing is called life. And there are gonna be issues in life that we gotta be able to deal with. If not, we're gonna be so medicated that it's not going to be us that's leading these next generations, it's gonna be the medicine.
While the topic may be very complex, the message is simple. Reaching young people in crisis requires a commitment to understanding their world. It's about stepping out from behind polished appearances and professional distances to genuinely connect with those who feel overlooked and forgotten. Only then can we begin to bridge the gap between isolation and support, helping these young people see themselves not as abandoned or disregarded, but as valued and loved.
They cannot find not one person that cares about them. If I refuse to go where they are, and every time they see me, I'm dressed up in, nice sports coats and everything of that sort, and shoes and jewelry and stuff, I don't look like anybody that they're connected to. Even if I come with the plethora of resources, they can't connect to me because there's no trust. I'm not willing to go to where they are, but I want them to come to me so that I can change them. That process has never made sense. So the first thing that they say is, don't nobody care about us, because the people that they're used to seeing around them really don't care about them. And the people who really do care about them don't care enough to go to them. So they see a lot of void and a lack of miscommunication and a lack of connection, and they start to buy into it. And when the person starts to buy into the fact that nobody cares about them, they go from being regular citizens to becoming savages. And what we are witnessing is a pure enactment of people who really don't care about themselves anymore. Whether they live, whether they die, whether they go to jail, whether they survive, they really don't care no more because they feel as though nobody cares about them.
Honestly, I feel like everything's a lie. We just live in this one big lie, if that makes sense. Like, it don't make sense to me. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a whole big lie, to be honest. And we put on this earth to die. I feel like the government, the white people control everything. And they know what they're doing, that's just how I feel. Like, it's just a lie.
Honestly, I just feel like it's a waste of time. Like, the world is really a waste of time. People dying left or right over dumb stuff. People not being able to grow up. See, like, a whole bunch of people got dreams. A whole bunch of people I grew up with had basketball dreams. They not here to make it because they got involved in the wrong crowd, died, passed away. So it's really a cold world.
But in a world that often feels so cold, the warmth of connection might just be the spark these young people need.
Like, I'm an adult, actually. I remember being a kid saying, I can't wait to be an adult. Now I want to be a kid again. The world is just a scary place. It really is.